Quick storyline. Last year, Bob Baffert's still banned by Churchill, so he will probably be back next year. But he will definitely be back in the Preakness, just like he was last year when his runner upset Mage in the Preakness. Someone else is back, and that's 88-year-old legend D. Wayne Lucas. It's the first time he's had a horse in the Derby since 2018. Lucas has won the Derby 4 times. He's got Just Steel this year. So for those sentimental fans of his, you've got a rooting interest. Japan is also back. They've got 2 horses this year. One of them has a lot of buzz. It's an undefeated horse named Forever Young. And then Mage is back this year, sort of. The very first horse that you see in the list there, Dornoch, that is his actual full brother. And before we get started, I'm gonna let Andrew, we're gonna kind of break down how we think the race is gonna flow, and then we'll get into the field. So we're gonna talk about how the pace, there's a lot of folks out there that think the pace is gonna be really hot with Fierceness, Track Phantom, Dornoch on the inside having to go. So I'll let you speak to that real quick.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks everybody for having us here. So the pace for those of you that aren't veterans and more casual fans, typically for every furlong of a race, for every quarter of a mile, the average a baseline pace is 24 seconds. And for a Derby or a top stakes race, a sensible pace will be 23 and change and 47 and change, or maybe up to 48. So you start, pace is critical because you think of the old fable, the tortoise and the hare. If you get a bunch of jackrabbits that sizzle up front and they're running 22s and 45s, which is sizzling, then the proverbial tortoise horses have a really hot pace to close into.
Which is what happened the last 2 years.
Absolutely. And the flip side to that is you can have the horses up front sort of dawdling along and running up upper 47 half miles and the high 23 or 24 quarter mile. More of a dawdling casual pace, which makes it more challenging for the proverbial tortoise horses to close into that slower, more lethargic pace. So the conventional wisdom is, this will be a fast pace. I happen to disagree with that premise. I think it will be more of a casual pace, and which will hurt a closing horse like Sierra Leone, who we'll talk about in a minute, and help a more front running horse like one of the other favorites, if not the favorite, Fierceness. So we'll be, everybody out here may have a different opinion on the pace, but I have my own unique opinion. I think the pace will be sensible and will not be favorable to closers.
So as we go through, maybe we get to the end, he's probably going to be leaning towards the horse that's closer to the front. I tend to agree with Andrew on I don't think the pace is going to be as hot as some experts think, but in terms of fierceness, the big favorite, to me, it's not about how hot the pace is. It's basically whether or not he has any adversity. If he gets, even if he's in, say, third, and then maybe the pace is not hot, he's not used to being around a lot of horses. He's so fast, and his wins are dominant. I mean, he gets out and he goes and he wins by big lengths. You'll see that when we get to his page. He's incredible in his wins, but he's got a couple races where he didn't break well, or the pace was slow, and he ended up running in a bunch of traffic and didn't run so well. And that's my fear on him. So we'll get to that in a little bit. He's number 17. So we'll go ahead and start here with Dornoch, which we've already mentioned. He's coming out of the Bluegrass Stakes. They tried to pull him back. He's generally a front runner. He finished 4th in the Bluegrass to Sierra Leone, just a touch. We're ahead of him, a couple other Derby horses. As I said before, he's a full brother to Mage. He's going to have to go because he's on the inside, as they say. I think he'll be prone and throughout, probably till about the time they get serious. And I think, after they turn in the stretch, you're not gonna hear his name anymore. That's my opinion. Door knock.
I concur with Jason's opinion on Dornock. I faded him in the Bluegrass Stakes and kind of what I expected. He started to back up and not fire around the mile mark. The other interesting thing, negative thing about Dornock is he's in the dreaded one hole. And for the Derby, typically horses in the 1, 2, 3 spot are really pinched in. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, Churchill created a brand new starting gate that made those heavy inside draws less of a impediment where they're running literally into the rail when they first break. So it's a little more spread out, but nonetheless, these heavy inside draws, especially the one, and we'll talk about the two, are not favorable to any horse. So that's another impediment as well, that one horse draw. So I will have door knockoff tickets.
Number 2 there is Sierra Leone. If you see at the very top there where it talks about top middle, that's Dark Bay. He's a 3-year-old colt. I don't have a pointer. But then there's a 2300K. Sierra Leone is the most expensive horse in the race. He was purchased for 2.3 million. There is a local connection. The main owners are the folks behind the Coolmore conglomerate, Ashford Stud folks, if you think that up towards for sales. But there's a businessman named Brooks Smith from Louisville who's the part owner in this horse. He's got great connections. Gaffleone has been kind of the next best thing, or the next great jockey after Pat Day on the Kentucky circuit. He's a young rider. He's still looking for his first Derby as his champ ran. I love this horse. I got him back in the fall when he ran in the Remsen. He was actually against Dornock in that race. He came from way back in the slop and took the lead. And then I don't know if he just flattened out, but Dornock got him by a nose. That nose is the only thing that separates him from being undefeated. He closes like a freight train. He moves well in the morning. He's got a really commanding physical presence. He's my pick to win. I just love this horse. The drawback is, he's on the inside. He's going to face a lot of traffic. And as a closer, he's going to have to come from way behind. I just think he's immensely talented. And even if he doesn't win, I think he will finish in the top 4, definitely.
I will have Sierra Leone on my tickets, but to round out a superfecta or maybe a trifecta, I have concerns. The horse has a habit of acting up for the race. He had an exceptionally difficult time loading into the gate, and that's his MO. So I'm concerned about this horse and its composure when it's facing 170,000 plus people trying to load the gate with 19 other horses. The inside draw also concerns me, and having to get through a lot of traffic. But as Jason pointed out, he has an exceptional kick, and once he gets loose, he will presumably have a lot in the tank. But he also has some strikes against him as well. So and particularly since he's one of the favorites, I'm going elsewhere. I'll put him on the bottom of my superfecta ticket or trifecta ticket.
Number 3 is Mystic Dan. He's coming out of the yes.
If people want to learn more about his owner, Smith, there's a fantastic article in this newspaper that our sports editor did. And if you're a Oldham County High School original fan, Mike, you'll love the article.
And me.
1985 grad. So, you'll love it.
Thanks, Jane Ashley. Number 3, Mystic Dan. He's coming out of the Arkansas Derby where he was 3rd behind Luth, the Baffert horse that's going to show up in the Preakness, and then the Lucas horse. Just a couple quick things on Mystic Dan. He had a awesome race 2 back in the Southwest, but it was in the slop. I think Mind That Bird, a horse that was in the slop, and he was on the rail. He was on the golden rail. He really hadn't duplicated that. He's got a miler pedigree. I don't think he's going to be a factor at all Saturday.
Yeah, if it rains Saturday, then revisit that. Maybe he flourishes in the mud if it's a sloppy or muddy track. But I might have him in the bottom of my superfecta, but I like one of his peers from the Louisiana Derby, Just Steele, who I think beat him by 4 lengths. Just Steele is, I'm going to talk more about him, and I'll have Just Steele ahead of Mystic Dan.
All right, number 4 is Catching Freedom. This is the first of 3 Brad Cox horses. He's ridden by Flavia Pratt, one of the probably top 3 or 4 jockeys in the country. Got a pretty good pedigree. He's a confirmed closer. He closes strong every race. His late pace figures are just as good as Sierra Leone's. A lot of people are backing this horse as kind of a steam horse. This past couple of weeks has been working well at Churchill. I like the horse. I think he's probably going to finish in the top 5. I don't know if he's fast enough overall to be a win candidate. But if you're playing trifectas and superfectas, you definitely want to include him in the bottom.
Just to add about Flavia Pratt, he's an exceptional jockey, and particularly in the Derby, he's always seemed to outrun his odds and perform at a really high level in this race. So he's got a great jockey on board. I'll use him in my superfectas for sure.
He has had a problem switching leads, not to get too technical, but sometimes that could be detrimental when the horse is tiring. Number 5 is Catalytic. He's only run 1 distance race. That was in the Florida Derby. He was second to Fierceness Tour de Force performance there that he had. So somebody had to finish second, albeit by 13 lengths. I don't think this horse has a chance. His trainer, Safi Joseph, out of Southern Florida, doesn't have a really good record outside of Florida. In fact, he was suspended by Churchill over some of the stuff that went on last year with the safety and what have you. So I don't see this horse even in the top 10.
I'll probably, again, on a thick line on the bottom of the super, I'll probably consider including him. I will note that in the Florida Derby, he hit the gate coming out of the start, which never helps any horse. And he's lightly raced. He's only raced 3 times. So, in theory, could he progress? There's a lot of reasons to think he can maybe run his best race. And for that reason, I'll probably sprinkle him into the bottom of the superfecta, but I don't view him as a win candidate.
Number 6 is Just Steele. This is the Dwayne Lucas horse. This horse is very experienced. He's raced 11 times. He's raced in 7 stakes races. He actually has strong thoroughbred speed figures, but some of the other speed figures like buyer speed figures, and then this form we're looking at is a Brisnet form. His speed figures are just average here. He did run a pretty good race last out to Muth in the Arkansas Derby. And he's also won a race at Churchill. There's other long shots that I like better, but again, this is one of those horses you could use at the bottom. I personally prefer others because I don't think he's super fast. It's also got kind of an index. His jockey is the trainer Steve Asmussen's son, and he's never ridden in the Derby, so could be a detriment.
I love this horse at 20 to 1 odds. I'll have him at least in a try. I can see this horse winning is a long shot, but certainly finishing in the top 3. If you're a little more conservative with your wagering, putting a show bet on this horse is an excellent return opportunity. I think he ran at the thoroughbred speed figures. There's a similar metric called the Ragson sheets. And he has the 3rd fastest Ragson sheet figure behind Fierceness and Forever Young. So, and I love the foundation. As Jason indicated, he's run 11 times. His pedigree suggests that, he can run all day, can run 2 miles. So I like this horse, especially at 20 to 1 odds.
He's not for me. Honor Marie, this is the proverbial wise guy horse, which could be a positive and negative. Kind of a cool story. The trainer Whit Beckman. This is his first Derby horse. And then he's got, I think, an English jockey, and jockey's experienced, but he hasn't ridden in the Kentucky Derby before. Good pedigree, honor code out of a smart strike mare. He'll get the distance for sure. He's coming out of 2 key races in Louisiana. The Louisiana Derby, he was second to Catching Freedom. And then the Risen Star, he didn't run it quite as well. That race was won by Sierra Leone. But the Louisiana Derby trail, that has been highly productive the last 3 or 4 years since they increased the distance of Louisiana Derby to a mile and 3/16, which is the Preakness distance. He is a closer. I think there's a couple other closers that are faster than him. A lot of people are high on this horse. I think he's fairly average, to be honest.
This horse, I have a bittersweet quick story on this. This horse is sentimental to me. I won a good score of money on the Jockey Cup race that was run here in November. It was hours after a gut-wrenching loss as a U of L fan, the UK U of L football game. So I had a big trail of tears from that football game. But
UK beats U of L every year. It shouldn't have been that bad.
Joy, we're running. Look forward to 2025 to continue that conversation. But so it had a nice 9-1 score on that race. Loves Churchill. I noticed he's running the slot twice, including 2 back, where hadn't fared quite as well. Bullet work, and again 20-1 odds. So again, and big win at Churchill. So I like this horse underneath, and I will certainly be using this horse in my exotics.
Number 8 is Just a Touch. This is the second Brad Cox horse. Got locally known jockey Florent Giroux on him. He's only raced 3 times. His last race was in the Bluegrass, where he was second to Sierra Leone. He's consistently got strong thoroughbred speed figures, which is my favorite speed figures to look at. He's got a real good pedigree. Justify, obviously, his dad is a Triple Crown winner. He's out of a Tappet mare. Tappet's produced 3, maybe 4 Belmont winners. With only racing 3 times, he's only raced 1 race longer than a mile. He's only raced 1 time on a dirt track, on a fast track. So he's got a big license to improve. This similar comments that I made to Mage last year. I think he can make a big step forward. I think he's going to finish in the top 4. The drawbacks are, again, he is lightly raced. He's also not real explosive. He's forwardly placed. If he does get into somewhat of a speed duel, he's not he's more of a grinder, and so I'm not sure he'll make that burst that you need to win it at the end. But I'm pretty high on this horse.
This horse is going to be my kryptonite, and I'm having a tough time. Jason pointed out a lot of good information. Will this horse follow the pattern of Age or Justify? My pushback on that is all 3 of the Rags Inn or Thoroughgrass speed figures have been flat. They've been good numbers, but there hasn't been any progression on those 3 figures. And then Sierra Leone just smoked this horse at the end of a very admirable race in the Bluegrass Stakes. Does he move? He very well could move. I'm tending to lean against this horse progressing, which it needs to do a little more. But I'll have it at the bottom of my tickets. But I view this horse as a little more of a wise guy horse for this year, and I don't see it progressing, but I may get stung on that assessment. But you have to take a stand somewhere, and I see too many uncertainties for this horse, particularly it's 10-1. I'll bet it goes off at 8-1 or 7. We'll get bet down, and not a lot of value there.
Quick story on this horse. I don't know, you probably remember this, but there was a lot of people talking about this horse before he even ran, including him. You see that he ran on January 27th. It was probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Andrew called me at about 3:45 and said, Brad Cox has got a freak getting ready to run. You might want to watch this. So I'm sitting in the parking lot somewhere in Middletown by the Chick-fil-A or something, and I'm like, I gotta stop and watch this race. Of course, I probably wasn't really stopped. My wife made me stop. It's not a good idea to watch a horse race like that. So I've seen all this horses races, thanks to Andrew. Number 9 is the thoroughbred Cox horse. This to me is one of my sneaky long shots. He's got a good pedigree. His dad won the Derby. Bernardini is a really good stallion that's owned by the Godolphin group, who's got success all over the world. One of the drawbacks though is they're going back to a very young jockey, Axel Concepcion. He was actually the winner of the Eclipse Award for apprentice jockey last year. So he's very young, and the stage may be a little bit too big for him. I will say this: if you look his races, you see it on the left. You see that A. That stands for all weather. That's synthetic. So he ran his first 3 races at Turfway, and he won 2 of them. Then he switches to the Lexington. That's kind of the last. That's the last stop on the Derby Trail at Keeneland, and he won that race by not too far, but he had a pretty good horse named the Wine Steward coming after him, and he was dug in and very determined to hold that horse off. So he's only run on dirt 1 time, so he's 1 for 1 on dirt. He's a huge horse, and he's been working with the other Cox horses, and quite frankly, he's looked better than the other 2. To me, he's looked especially better than Catching Freedom. So he's going to be one of my long shots that I include. Might be a good horse to bet across the board, or something like putting your exactas with some other favorites.
Completely with Jason on this one. This is a real live long shot to keep an eye on. There's an interesting stat. Cox when he's paired up with this jockey, who I'm frankly just not familiar with, Alex Concepcion, has a 38% win percentage on the jockey with trainer over the last 60 days, and a 75% strike rate of hitting the board. That's just daggone exceptional. Not a huge sample size, but not a small sample size either, 24 races. So that's an intriguing stat to me. Then I want to ask Jason very quickly, what do you think about the short turnaround, the 3-week recovery time running it back from the
I think Brad Cox has had a couple of weeks to make that decision, and he's worked so well, especially against his other Derby entrants, that he's confident that the horse is peaking. And you only get 1 shot at the Derby, so why wait a couple extra weeks for the Preakness when this is your home track? You yourself are from Louisville, and he's qualified, so run it. I mean, a lot of lesser horses get Derby fever and run. This horse is good. He's qualified, and I think they've made the right decision. All right, number 10 is T.O. Password. This is the other Japanese horse. He very lightly raced. He's only run twice. I don't think a horse has won the Derby with only 2 starts in over 100 years. That's not going to happen Saturday. He does have some Sunday Silence blood, which you only see nowadays from a Japanese horse, because that's where he went to stud. He gets a little washy in the morning, meaning he sweats a lot, which you shouldn't see that in some of our chillier mornings. Could just be hot-blooded, who knows? I have no idea who he beat in those 2 races in Japan. I do know that he had a good workout this morning. I watched it this morning, so he's a complete wild card for me.
If you had the bankroll and you're playing a superfecta, maybe you use this horse on the bottom of your ticket. I do know while he is very lightly raced, both of those races are at a mile and an eighth. To Jason's point, I have no idea quality of the horses he raced against and beat. One of the horses, Smart Leah, won his next race next time out. So I don't know. I don't see this as a win candidate at all, but maybe somehow a dog will get it forward.
Number 11 is Forever Young. This is the much more acclaimed Japanese horse. This horse coming out of the UAE Derby, where he had a pretty good performance. He also ran in Saudi Arabia and won the Saudi Derby. And then his first 3 races in Japan. So he's 5 for 5 in 3 countries. So he travels well. The question, like the other Japanese horses, who did he beat? And then if you look from a historical standpoint, the UAE Derby, there's been a lot of, acclaimed horses, so to speak, come out of there. Last year we had Derma Sotogaki, which Andrew was really high on, who did turn out to be a pretty good horse. He was second in the Breeders' Cup Classic. They usually don't do well in the Derby. And in fact, no horse coming out of that race has ever even finished in the top 4. Everybody says this horse is better than any of the other ones before. He could be, but I have a hard time handicapping these races across the world. And until I see one hit the board, I'm not going to put a lot of money on him. He could be, if you're doing a tri wheel or even a tri box or something like that, you can put him in there. Just depends on what your bankroll is. But he is not somebody that I'm going to bet heavily, like a win play show or any kind of larger exacta. Or I would not use this horse in like a pick 3 or pick 4. I just like others a lot better.
I differ with Jason. If you like the historical failings of the Japanese horses, then continue to fade this horse here. But from a speed standpoint, this horse has massive talent. It's the only horse that's run a faster race from the Thoroughbred Braxton sheet data. Its fierceness. This horse has done it twice. I know that all 5 races have been at routes, including the most recent one at the UAE Derby being mile 3/16. I think this horse is a legit win candidate, and he'll be everywhere on my tickets.
Food for thought. Number 12 is Track Phantom, Steve Asmussen, Joel Rosario, very solid connections. As I said earlier, Asmussen's still looking for his Derby win. I think next year he's still going to be looking for his first Derby win. He is pretty much a confirmed front runner. They tried to take him back in the Louisiana Derby, and that didn't really work. He does have a lot of class. He's raced in a lot of stakes races. He won a couple of stakes races early in the year, but as the distances have increased, he's backed up. So he's not improving as the distances get longer. I think you're going to hear his name a lot in the first quarter because he's going to get out and go. I think he's going to try to get out ahead of Fierceness. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. He'll be in the top flight early, but I think he fades even before they hit the turn.
Jason won't be offended. I'm gonna take a nap for these next 5 horses until we get to the big dog. Starting with Track Phantom. It's just that this gets to my point about the speed. So Track Phantom has been a front running horse. Now, does that mean he's a speed horse? Look at the last 3 races, all of his races in 2024. Half mile at 48-3. 49-3, and then 3 back in the Lecomte, ran a smoking 24 and 48-1. And those 6 furlong times for the last 2 races, 1:12 and change, and a scintillating 1:14 3. So I mean, this horse is slow. It's just not a sizzling front runner. But everybody will say, "Oh, this horse has to be in the lead." Well, if he's running against Jason and me, then yeah, he can't be in the lead. But this horse is not going to be a factor, and it's not. It may sniff the front briefly, but I don't. This is one of the broad speed horses that is in this race, and why I don't think the pace will be quite as sizzling when you get granted over the times.
Okay. I'll go through next couple pretty fast. They're both long shots. West Saratoga, it's kind of a good story though. With the trainers from Bahamas, he's beat cancer several times. Not much to say about this horse other than he is the lone gray. So if you like gray horses, then this is your only option. He is a fighter. He's finished in the money 8 out of 10 races. But then again, in his last 3 races, he's lost by a combined 22 lengths. So he will finish probably in the very back of the field. Number 14, conversely, is Endlessly. A lot of class here. He's got 5 wins and 6 lifetime starts. All those wins are on turf and synthetic. The biggest thing for me is right after he won his last race, which was the Turfway Stakes, which is the Jeff Ruby Stakes. The trainer came out very definitively and said, "This is a grass horse, and we're going to run in a grass race Derby weekend." Well, lo and behold, Derby fever hits, and the owners have pressed forward to have him in the Derby. There are other long shots again I like better. If it rains, you might move him up. Sometimes turf horses run well in the rain, but I think he's too slow, and you just don't have the wild. You don't have any sample size. Okay.
I'll note, I broke down independently, if it rains, that, you might revisit this horse. Otherwise, Endlessly is, the end.
I thought you were sleeping. All right, number 15, Domestic Product. This is the other Chad Brown horse. Really good connections with Irad Ortiz, top 3 jockeys in the country riding. He's a proven closer, and he's closed against slow paces. Most people think this horse doesn't have a chance. I think he's got a decent chance to hit the board. I don't think he can win. His pedigree is geared more towards a miler. He's got overall slow speed figures, but that's because he raced in a couple of races with very slow opening fractions. But he closed well into those. I think he's a hard trier. He's been working well. So this is one of the long shots that I like. Number 16 is Grand Mo the First. He's got a good name, I guess. You can say he's versatile. He's run on all 3 surfaces, and he's finished in the money every time, but he's too slow to make any impact. He's never won a stakes race.
Yeah, I refer to the source as Grand Mo the 17.
And number 17 is Fierceness. This will be your favorite, should be your favorite. He's absolutely dominant in his wins. He was the 2-year-old champ off of his big win in the British Cup Juvenile. The thing there, if you look at his past races, the first one, you see that speed figure 101, then it goes to 77, bad race. Then the British Cup Juvenile, 112, huge race. First race of this year, he didn't break that well. It says he got pinballed at the start. Okay, so valid excuse, but he still couldn't beat Hades, who didn't even qualify for the Derby, and Domestic Product. That's the only horse in the race that has beaten Fierceness. And then it comes back in the Florida Derby, just smokes everybody. So yes, he's the fastest horse in the race, but we've had lots of fastest horses in the Derby over the years. Think Bellamy Road, for instance, but they can't handle adversity. I mean, I'm not going to leave this horse off my tickets, but 2 things. I can't trust that he's going to duplicate the performance because, what are we doing? We're looking at a racing form, and all I see in the racing form is up, down, up, down, up, down, and the next one for him is supposed to be down. So, and he's the favorite, and who likes to bet on a favorite? You don't get any value. Sure, you're going to include this horse in your pick 3s or pick 4s or your trifectas, but I don't want to say you're wasting your money. I mean, if you got $1,000, you want to put him on a win, go ahead. But he's not for me from a betting standpoint, but he's a spectacular, deserving favorite.
What about the 17-hole Jinx?
I think it's just a statistical anomaly that no horse from the 17 holes ever won. I mean, they said the same thing about the 19 and the 20, and the horses from those holes have won recently. All right, Andrew.
So I'm a big fan of this horse. It's the fastest horse in the race. The concern about this horse, not having dealt with a lot of adversity, I would say there are these other horses that ran subsequent to Bellamy Road, such as American Pharaoh, Justify, and Authentic, all of whom had the same type of running style. Those three horses, two of which were Triple Crown winners, never really passed horses leading up to the Derby. They ran the Derby and they never had to deal with adversity because they got at or near the front. So to me, it boils down to, do you believe Authentic can get at or near the front of this race? To me, thank you. Fierceness can get at or near the front of this race. And I do for a couple of reasons. One, he's in the 17 hole, which I think is an advantage. He won't have a lot of speed on paper to his inside, so he'll be able to tuck in. Number two, Johnny Velasquez, who's one of the best in the business, and in fact, I believe rode Authentic, likes to get up front. That's his MO. So I think this horse is going to get out quickly and be somewhere in the top four. And then when Johnny V's ready, he's going to hit the go button, and this horse is going to be off to the races. I won't single this horse for the reasons Jason very astutely stated in terms of the lack of value. It is a favorite, but I'll be keen on a lot of different exotic wagers and try to get my value in the second, third, and or fourth place lines. Big fan.
Number 18 is Stronghold. Stronghold is the Santa Anita Derby winner. I'll say this, it was probably one of the weaker Santa Anita Derby winners of recent history. Baffert's probably two best horses were not in that race. One of them was Booth because he won the Arkansas Derby, and the other one is Nisos, is that right? Nisos? Well, anyway, he's a little bit on the shelf right now. So yes, he won the Santa Anita Derby, but it was kind of like the B team out in California. He has finished first or second in every race. He's raced in 4 graded stakes. A decent long shot to contend, maybe to look at. I just don't think he's quite brilliant or fast enough. I haven't seen him make any kind of explosive move. He's kind of a grinder. So this is not a horse that I will really use much at all.
The interesting thing here, the only reason this horse is relevant to me, because I don't think it'll hit the top 4, but it has shown some early speed, and I wonder if this horse will try to run side by side with Fierceness and create some of that adversity that Jason alluded to, with pressuring Fierceness to his immediate outside. He does show the ability on paper to like to get out quickly. My belief is Fierceness is just faster, and that won't come into play. But if you're skeptical, that's the potential adversity that might be created for Fierceness.
Number 19 is Resilience. He won the Wood Memorial. It was his best race to date. Pretty good speed figure there. His speed figures before that were kind of middling, but his Hall of Fame trainer, Bill Mott, made an equipment change. He put blinkers on last race, and he leapt forward. And some folks will say horses will make even a bigger improvement the second time they're running blinkers. So keep that in mind. The thing that sticks out about Resilience to me is fitness. He's got 6 races at a mile and above. He's got 2 mile races, 2 mile and 16th races, and 2 mile and 1/8 races. So the distance is not going to be an issue for him. He's training well at Churchill. I've seen him in the morning several times. He looks good. He's got a great trainer. He does need to improve speed-wise to be a player. This is somebody that I might take a flyer on with, across the board type bet. But he's not nearly as talented as some of the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, so he needs to take another move on his best race, which was the Wood, but, being a Belmont horse, that's Belmont's MO. He typically progresses his horses very deliberately. And so it's not, unforeseeable at all to see this horse run his best race this coming Saturday. And if he does make that type of move, it would put him in the money. So for that reason, particularly at a 20-1 price point, he'll be on, at least the bottom line of my super factor ticket.
The last horse that's in right now, you remember last year we had 5 scratches. And so a lot could change between now and Saturday. The Society man, if you look at his last race, he ran pretty decent and got a decent number against Resilience in the Wood. You also notice that he was 106-1 that day. So this is like the Rodney Dangerfield no respect horse. He was coming off a win in his last race too, although it was a maiden. I don't think this horse is that talented. I don't think he'll do much, but I do see that he had a really strong work. He was second fastest out of 130 works on a couple of days ago, 3 days ago. So, this could be an absolute bomber in 4th, but I don't see anything higher than that. I'll say this on just the other 2 horses, if you don't mind, Andrew, just to kind of wrap up here. Epic Ride, decent form on synthetic up at Turfway. He came to the Bluegrass, respectable 3rd to Sierra Leone, just a touch. There's probably a little bit of Derby fever. And then the last horse, and quite honestly, I had not even heard of this horse when I saw this horse entered. I think this is a severe case of ridge strike fever from folks coming out of Turfway. This horse was 181-1 in his last start. I don't think I've ever seen a horse's odds that high. So this horse has no chance. Of course, we all said that about Ridge Strike too. But I can't really tell you much about Mugatu. Yeah, I think he's named after a movie character, by the way. And if anybody knows that, I'll give you extra credit. So Matt, if you don't mind, go backwards to the top of the form, and you're going to see my picks, and then I'll let. Keep going. And I'll let Andrew kind of, whoop, there you go. So here's my picks as of today. I think I don't trust Fierceness, so I still think he's going to be in there. If I'm going to do a box or something, that's my top 5, try box or exacta box. Encino is really the longest odds in there. I just think he's peaking at the right time. I think Just a Touch has a license to improve. I think Sierra Leone is going to be coming from deep, as well as Catching Freedom. If you scroll down a little bit, you're kind of just, and this is part of what I'll send you. These are some horses that I mentioned that I kind of like a little bit that could be in your trifectas and supers if you bet wheels. And then I think the odds on Sierra Leone are going to go up. So I think if he's 5-1, to me, that's good value on a horse of his talent. And then at the very bottom, I said, if all else fails, just throw the 6 horses from Pletcher, Chad Brown, and Brad Cox in a box, and you might do okay. If you want to scroll back up, there's my Oaks picks. Whoop, whoop, go back. There's my Oaks picks. Those are really the top 5 horses. Any one of those 5s can win. I will give you 2 long shots that I may sprinkle in. One is Power Squeeze, and another one absolutely no one is talking about, and probably will be 50-1, is Fiona's Magic. In fact, if this is not an omen or not, I get out of my car right out here, and there is next to me is a car that on the front license plate it says Fiona. I don't know whose car that is, but the horse lost by like 50 lengths last race, and then found out that she was sick and had all kinds of mucus and everything. And she got here late, so nobody's really talking about her. And there's not a lot of speed in the Oaks. And she is a good front runner. And I think she's got Louis Saez on her, who's a really good front end jockey. So if you just messing around and have, you know, 10 or 15 bucks, you might put it on, across the board on Fiona's Magic, just as a hunch.
I'll start with the Oaks. I haven't drilled down on the Oaks nearly as much, just a couple quick anecdotal items. One, a horseman, candidate, a colleague of mine, said that just FYI has been looking really good out of the track this week. And it's, you know, its performance certainly backs up that it's a good horse. So keep an eye on that. And then the other thing is, I heard a blurb on the radio, Ways and Means, who's one of Chad Brown's horses, had a sizzling work this past weekend, 46-1. I mean, that's moving. And apparently Chad Brown is not pleased and referred to. I don't know who the jockey was doing the ride, but you know, the horse was not supposed to be moving that briskly, and Chad Brown was not pleased with that workout. So just a couple anecdotal notes on the Oaks.
Real quick, that number 2, Torpedo Anna, for Ray Simpson, Mr. Swimmer grandpa back there, he's named after, or she is named after Ian Thorpe, the Australian Olympic swimmer that they called the Torpedo. And that's Kenny McPeak's filly, and he was quoted as saying, "You better bring a bear because I'm bringing a grizzly." So kind of like Dale Romans really liking his horse. McPeak, and as well as some astute handicappers, really likes this Torpedo Anna. And of all the horses there that I have listed, she's going to have the best odds probably. So that's another one that, you know, you might play like in an exacta with all, and then all over her, you know, that way if she runs 1-2, you automatically get the exacta. That's kind of a.
So for my top 5, there's some similarity with Jason. I would, for all intents and purposes, swap Sierra Leone and Fierceness. The line 2, I would have Forever Young. Line 3, I absolutely like Encino, and then would kind of 3A, 3B, Just Steel, and then Just a Touch for me is just the wild card. I'll have him lower on there, and then finally for like my number 5, or to round it out, Honor Murray.
Question. Don't count on one? I would say talent wise, Fierceness is probably the only one that fits that bill.
I think Fierceness, we'll see, but if Fierceness runs how I think he'll run, I think he's a legit Triple Crown candidate.
Well, a little sidebar to that question, Tom, is Belmont is under a major renovation, and the Belmont Stakes was going to be actually at Saratoga, and it's only going to be 1.25 miles. So you're not going to have, so it's going to be a little different this year.
Also, at the treatment, there's a certain white-haired trainer like me laying on weight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Baffert is going to be loaded at the Preakness.
No fun with that. So close it out real quick, for those of you with I have a 14-year-old who listens to, you know, this outlandish pop music, if you music and quotes, but I'm going to steal from some of this topical trash and say this year with Fierceness, if Megan Trainor would say, it's all about the pace, no trouble. It's all about the pace, about the pace, no trouble. Quit my day job. That's
Any one final question? Anyone? Email me if you want all these notes.
On that note,
Thank you.
now that you're finished singing, thank you again, Andrew. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you have a mug, there's some coffee. Jason, thank you again. Appreciate it. Give me a round of applause. And we will also make a donation in your all's name to Polio Plus, Andrew. Thank you all for sharing this. Appreciate it.
Well, we certainly hope they gave you a whole lot of good insight on what horses to pick, and I certainly had no I had no idea. I haven't even seen it horse until today, so, oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. But fellas, thank y'all so very much. Very, very informative. Thank you. So, let's do the wheel. Albert, don't mind.
Hey, Jason. $375.
And the number is 045. 045. All right. All right, Brandon. All right, Brandon. Go for the extension or whatever you call that. $40 spin. 2 times around, make it good. No, there we go. Oh, I like it.
Pizza. We got one? Nope, we got one more.
We have one more pizza here.
Al. Al.
Oh, one more. Very good. Very good. All right. Draw.
Finished? All right, meeting is adjourned.
Am I right? Yes.